My first company sold for $10 million. 2 weeks before we were giving the business to them, one of our engineers deleted the entire code base and we didn't have a backup. The starting is really brutal. It's like if you've never posted before, you post one time, you get like 4 engagements. At some point, everyone had 0 subscribers, 0 followers, 0 revenue, 0 everything.
There was a little beef that took place with one of the larger incumbents that you kind of attacked, and they attacked you. And I watched that and I was like, wow, he must be getting so much signups from this.
We hadn't even really decided to make the B2B product until we saw how effective this content vehicle was. I consider myself in the edutainment business. I happen to have a SaaS at the end of the funnel. I've gone 0 to 1 3 times, totally different motion every single time. What can I do to break through? The superpower is either you are harnessing this organic social content on your own, or you figured out a way to harness it through UGC.
Behind the scenes, it was a small group of people that were doing everything.
Welcome back to the GTM podcast. It's your host, Scott Barker.
I want to know how this insane growth actually happened. It's no secret that AI is revolutionizing the way we work, and the B2B sales landscape is no exception. Meet Upland Altify, a leading provider of AI-enhanced sales solutions designed to help revenue teams work smarter. Large organizations around the world trust Altify to overcome sales challenges and simplify complex processes. This Salesforce-native suite of sales solutions empowers sellers' productivity, streamlines workflows, and uncovers hidden opportunity, all leading to significant revenue growth. Learn how Altify can maximize your Salesforce investment and transform your revenue team. Visit www.uplandsoftware.com/Altify to see Altify in action.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the GTM podcast. As always, you got Scott Barker here. Appreciate you lending us your eardrums for the next 45 minutes or so. We're going to talk everything go-to-market and building companies. And I've got a fantastic guest that I've been excited to have on for a while. I'm joined by Adam Robinson. Adam, what's up, man? Welcome.
Scott, I'm excited to be here. Let's dive into it. I've been waiting for a long time for this one too.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah.
I get a lot of inbound podcasts and like most of them, it's like, I've never heard of that before. But yours I had.
I appreciate that. We're extremely fortunate to have some fantastic guests that make me look good. And I feel like I kind of know you I know this background really well, just from all your LinkedIn videos. That's the cool thing about kind of building a brand is you can kind of get to know someone asynchronously, which also can be weird. I don't know if you ever get this, but do you ever go to a conference or you're out and people will feel like they know you more than they do?
Every day it's more. So because for me, I didn't write about this stuff until September of last year. And what I was trying to do before that was, build audience of Shopify stores basically. And it was doing okay at that. But yeah, it just kind of exploded and it really it was this kind of opposite way of doing it. Like we hadn't even really decided to make the B2B product until we saw how effective this content vehicle was. At the same time, our whole go-to-market motion was getting torched in our other business. And it became, for me, I believe like if you have access to a voice that can create organic social media in a group of target prospects that is truly great that they truly want, it's like you should create a product for that. Like the B2C business, like it's just proven that is the most effective and efficient way to sell stuff. That's why the Kardashians are billionaires. And that was literally what it was. Like, holy cow, like I can like do something special and like it's like very, very, very efficient. So let's build a product to sell into this.
Yeah. I mean, that feels like it is very much the future of building businesses. And it used to be, like you mentioned, more on the B2C side, but it's now how you build a software business too. It's like we used to build a product and then go search for demand. And now you can build demand and then give them exactly what they want in the form of a product, which is a pretty big fundamental shift.
Yep. I think it is. So in a way, 4 steps to the epiphany is this, but it's just one-to-one. In a way, it's like you're building your audience in the lean startup movement. You're building your buyers as you're building your product. Uh, this just like turbocharges it. I mean, we had in the 5 months we were developing this product, Santosh and I did 300 discovery calls. That's like that's like I, I don't know how long it would. I don't know if 300 discovery calls would have been possible without an inbound engine of engagement that we could then sort of like respond to someone who commented and be like, by the way, we're thinking about building this thing. It's different in these ways. Would you talk to us about it? And every one of them was like, heck yeah. They've been like following this sort of rant about the changing go-to-market for so long. So yeah, I mean, I don't know that it's going to be the only way that software gets sold, but I think every year that goes by, more examples of someone coming along like me and building affinity around this founder profile and then selling software into it in a very fast and low friction way will be the way that some businesses more every year get off the ground. Just because, like, dude, everything's working against you at the beginning, right? Like, and this is like a disproportionate amount of awareness relative to, quite frankly, the amount of awareness that you deserve, right? Like, and back when we could just send cold email out to get a startup off the ground and like interested parties would engage with that, like that was like this most incredible hack of all time, this predictable revenue playbook. But like, I don't know, man, nobody I talk to can do that anymore, right? Like, so yeah, it's kind of like you have to look at what's in front of you. This is my opinion of entrepreneurship, right? Like I've gone 0 to 1 3 times, totally different motion every single time. And it's sort of like, what can I do to break through? Now, to me, the superpower is either you are harnessing this organic social content on your own, or you figured out a way to harness it through UGC. And you have this army of marketers that's doing more than a 50-person demand gen team could have, right? Like, and look, product is equally as important. Like our B2B it was so disruptive in terms of like what it did and the pricing of it. But magic, lightning in a bottle happens when those two interact with each other. And the thing I love about it, and the thing that I think is great for founders in the future, is it's a path to bootstrapping. That like, when you had to hire a sales and marketing team of 25 people to do what my LinkedIn brand is doing, that just required you to raise $5 million. Whereas like, I have 2 contractors helping me with it. You know what I mean? It's like a beautiful, I mean, I just love these efficient businesses also, but like, it's just a brand new path that I don't think was necessarily, it may have been there 4 or 5 years ago, but it wasn't obvious to many people. Like, Guillaume from Lendless was doing it, but like, and Russell Brunson, but that's like it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, you might not need as many of those damn VCs anymore in this model. It does, lend itself to more efficient growth, which is a great
But
path for some entrepreneurs.
early stage, but by the way, like that capital, I think just ends up transitioning to capital that's like a fund, like this fund called Serent. They only invest in founder-owned, profitable, growing, bootstrapped businesses past 15 or 20 million ARR. And the intention is not to really give it capital to grow the business. It's just like, here's liquidity, let's get on a path to exit this thing. Let's accelerate it with the free cash that you have in our go-to-market expertise and do it that way. And it's just like the numbers change. It's like every one of those has to be a 1 to 2x minimum, and they're shooting for 3 to 5. And like, I don't know, I think that's better for the founders, right? It's like you're getting something, right? Like you're getting liquidity, and like something's gonna happen, and you're not just gonna be a donut. Whereas like the VC model is really hard on the founders from an odds perspective.
Totally. Yeah. And just quickly, I want to, for the listener, so if you haven't flipped on LinkedIn recently, Adam Robinson is the founder and CEO of retention.com, also the founder and CEO of our B2B, has been making just a ridiculous amount of waves on LinkedIn. And I like to think, I've been in kind of the LinkedIn ecosystem for quite a while now, and it's been really crazy to see how quickly you've grown traction. And we're explaining that this is like a potential new way to create demand for the product and platform that you're building as a founder. But a lot of people try and do this. Why do you think you and your message resonated at this time?
So I think there's probably three main reasons. Number one is I was doing it for a year before it was really working, and I just stuck with it. And then there was one glimpse in July of last year of what might really work instead of sort of work. And then there was an experiment over Labor Day, and 4 posts in a row were absolute bangers. And I was like, now I know what to do. And the long story short of that, for me, it was I started writing content for effectively myself. Like, it went from trying to aggregate an audience of Shopify stores to writing content directly at SaaS revenue leaders about this cataclysmic problem we were all having, but nobody was really acknowledging that these big BDR teams that we all have might not even work at all anymore. You could probably reduce the head count by 90% and get the same amount of book demos out of them, because the power had shifted back to marketing from that function. So it was skill was part of it, and then identifying this sort of perfect author to content to platform fit, content market fit or whatever. And then I think there's these freedoms that I have being a bootstrapper. So first of all, whenever you do anything in marketing, in life, in whatever, you have to be different than what everyone else is, or it's just not novel, right? Down the middle doesn't work. If you're oh, no, Facebook's going away next year, whatever, or we should shut Google down for data privacy. It's that's too far out, but somewhere in the middle of not quite crazy, but definitely not mainstream is where you have to live, and it's got to be related to sort of what you do, right? So, um, and then some freedom that I have that a lot of other people don't, most people in SaaS do not, is I don't have investors. So I'm doing stuff like showing people my financials. I'm giving monthly recurring. I have a live SaaS metrics dashboard for our B2B published that I send to my newsletter every single week. So you can see in the churn's terrible. I'm just not hiding anything, right? So that's amazing content, because people, most people can't do that. They literally ask me how I am able to have the strength to share stuff like that, right? And the answer is because I know how novel it is, right? Thinking back to 5 years ago, before I started retention.com, when I had been stuck at 3 million ARR for 4 years, which is devastating, by the way. It's not a good place to be at all. I was reaching for anything written by anyone farther ahead than me, right? And this is part of the reason I have energy to create this content. 5 years ago, I would have lapped up every single word that the current version of me said. I would have tried to copy a lot of it, which is the wrong move. What I should have done is taken these ideas. I should have just been looking at someone like me, which was not there, and then trying to try to understand why I was doing what I was doing, right? Because just the thought process behind it, it's so valuable, and it can sort of inspire other decisions and sort of standards and all that stuff, right? So, long rambling answer: be different in ways that other people just can't, or can't make themselves sort of do, right? Because that's you're protected there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the world is craving
You
authenticity,
nailed it. Yeah.
more than ever, right? That's what people want. And in the B2B world were just starved of it. You know, everything got
Mhm.
over marketingized and like everything was too polished and everything was always good and rosy. And we didn't hear some of the trials and tribulations from people. So when someone comes around and is like, hey, I know what you're going through, you know, that is really going to resonate. And then the other piece I think you've done well is like walk this line of call it controversy, right? You have an opinion, and you know there was a little beef that took place with one of the larger incumbents
Yep.
that you kind of attacked, and they attacked you. And I watched that, and I was like, wow. He must be getting so much signups from this, which
It
is
was
like
unbelievable. Yeah.
wild.
Just like the greatest. You know, when I think back on like pivotal moments in my career, literally, not just this company, like I think that that was one of them. Like actually getting a cease and desist from them and then having the fortitude, knowing that there was a very good chance I would get sued, to just like post it on LinkedIn and rewrite what they cease and desist me for. It was crazy. I mean, the amount of activity and like the it was just, it went from like people thinking, vaguely knowing me as a LinkedIn guy, to like really like all of their customers who are going to be our customers in several years, like as we sort of drift up market like every SaaS does, every one of them understanding exactly what I did, you know, which is just, it's magic. It could not have happened any other way. It was just millions of dollars of free PR, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And it was done in a way that wasn't like malicious too, right? It was just like, here's what's happening. Again, it was the authenticity. Here's what's actually happening
Right.
right now, and here's what's
Yeah.
going on. And you know, having the yeah, the fortitude or the balls, I think we can say, to just like be like, all right, let's throw it on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
let's call my lawyer and make sure we're we're
Yeah.
gonna be okay.
See what happens.
Yeah, see what happens. I love it. So one of the questions I get all the time, or I used to get this more when I was, you know, more active on LinkedIn. I would often, you know, encourage founders, encourage sellers to like, you know, spend more time. There's like a real opportunity here. You're going to get inbound. You're going to be able to reach people that you wouldn't be able to normally reach if like you have a decent amount of followers. And a lot of times people would come back at me and be like, okay, I get that it works for you because, you know, for a large portion of my career, I was like selling into revenue leaders, or now it's important to get in front of founders. And like those people live on LinkedIn. I'm selling to farmers. I'm in agriculture tech, or I am selling into insurance, and it doesn't make sense for me. Is there a way to do what you have done in outside of software and revenue leaders? Do you still think there's an opportunity? And how would you? What advice would you give those folks?
So I think more people are coming onto LinkedIn every day. So, you know, if you just look at industries, like, yes, some of if the people are not on LinkedIn at all, like you are right. It's going to be very hard to generate leads on LinkedIn. That being said, uh, there are a lot of other mission critical parts to your business: recruiting, partnerships, investors, like whatever, like all of these people are on LinkedIn. And you cannot do what I'm doing, which I would consider a completely all in effort. And you can give some time to it, and it will create this automated trust building machine for you in those departments. And you get inbound in those departments, which is super valuable, right? Like if you don't have to sell candidates and you can get them opting into work with you because of, you know, 2 hours a week you spend basically like extolling like the virtues of your company and your mission and your values and like your vision for everything, like everybody's going to check that out and skim it, who has any, you know, who's checking you out for anything, right? Like so it can be incredibly valuable there. I think like the amount of industries that you can actually use it to generate leads for is probably increasing, you know, due to just how they're running the platform now. Um, but you know, I just keep thinking back to Russell Brunson. Like, there's what you're doing today, and there's what you're probably doing in 10 years. And if you can develop a voice on organic social media and understand what it takes to create good content, kind of in any niche, right? Like, I think that I could, like, maybe not be as prolific as SaaS, but like I could go, like, I just know what good content is now. I think I could like accept the challenge and like go make content for another niche somewhere and probably do much better than someone who hadn't had the type of success that I had with SaaS people yet. So if you can develop your organic social voice, your thought leadership voice in general, and these are words stolen right out of Russell Brunson's mouth, if you get to the point where people are willing to pay you for advice, you are one of the most powerful people in the world. Like, it may not be if you're selling to farmers business, like it may lead somewhere else, but like there is just no question in my mind from watching what's happening to me, watching what happened to the Kardashians, like this machine is set up to do that, right? Like, so it's hard to like, every founder's entirely focused on their business. Like, it's hard to say like, there's this thing beyond, because I heard it 2 years ago. I was like, I don't care about that. Like, now I definitely do. It's like, there's something beyond the current business that you're working on. And that's what this is for. It's very hard as all in as startup founders get to acknowledge that, right? It may apply to your current business someday, but it will definitely apply to whatever you do next, right? This attention arbitrage thing is super real. I consider myself in the edutainment business. I happen to have a SaaS at the end of the funnel. I could have a lot of things at the end of this funnel. It happens to be a SaaS right now. It's probably going to be some other stuff in the next 5 years, Um,
I mean, I love it. I think of even just like my own personal journey, like originally starting on LinkedIn and then throwing up a Substack just because I was bored during the pandemic and like wanted to write about some stuff. And where, I started with selling like digital asset management software, which was like not a buyer that cared about the sales stuff that I was writing about back in the day. But now, you fast forward and when you look back, like probably wouldn't have got the job at Sales Hacker had I not had some of that brand. Then the outreach acquisition wouldn't happen. I wouldn't have been able to build the programs that I built at outreach because they were largely like ecosystem led growth programs, which I had only could do because of my experience and the network that I had. And now transitioning to VC, like I hear all these other, venture partners and great investors struggling to they like find a company and then they can't get to the founder. Well, I can just like
yeah.
send a LinkedIn message and it's like
Oh yeah.
so incredibly
Yeah. You
easy.
can
And there's
talk to anybody
it's
you want. Yeah,
anybody at any time,
totally. And
which
I feel the same
is
way.
wild.
It's like
Yeah.
all of a sudden I have this magic where like anybody who spends time on LinkedIn, I know that I can talk to them,
Mhm.
you know?
For whatever
It's great.
reason,
Yeah,
whether
for
you want to
whatever
learn
reason you want.
something,
Yeah.
whether it's a commercial discussion, anything. Like it's been such a superpower beyond any like money I've made from it is like just the learning of like, wow, like the CRO from this company will like just chat with me for 30 minutes, just like shoot the shit. Like it's wild. The kind of cycles you can get in of rapid learning and once you build relationships, people like to do business with people they know and like and trust. And oftentimes it does turn into a commercial relationship. Um, so there's a lot of people that are waking up, I think, to this trend, partly because the way we've been going to market is like fundamentally breaking down. You mentioned response rates are just abysmal, and there's like who's clicking on like LinkedIn ads and like just a lot of things that worked didn't work. No one's downloading your case study. Very few people are coming to your at least your traditional webinar. I think there is like these digital live events that are getting better. But what do you say to founders? Actually, I'll ask this question first. Do you like creating content? Do you enjoy that part of running your business?
Uh, so it definitely feels like work to me. You know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I'm going like the 14-year-old me gets to go to like the amusement park, right, every day. It's like, I really feel And by the way, I have a 2-year-old and a new kid on the way, and I am the CEO of 2 SaaS startups, right? Like, so I'm very serious about like the time borders. It's like 8 a.m. to 5:30 Monday through Friday. That is work, and then the rest of it is family. And there's just not much else, which is weird because like I was single till I was 40, so it's like the time is just so different now. Um, and it definitely is. I feel many times that there's just like I have to write so much, like in the amount of time that I have. Because well, my life is basically like, Mondays are all internal meetings related to both the companies, and then the rest of the week is this kind of stuff. And it's like some of it is trying to make LinkedIn the best edutainment channel that there is, and then the rest of it are I'm doing stuff like this. Like I do probably, in a week that I'm here, I do 10 guest slots of
Wow.
people's podcasts related to go to market. I've basically told the entire market, I'm like, I will come on your show if you invite me. So hit me up. It's this crazy enviable position where they want my audience so I can do it inbound. Whereas like a year and a half ago, I had to like hire Lemon Pie and like they had to do it. Right. And so in my view on that, by the way, is like, there's these like incredibly compounding exponential benefits to this. Reaching out to people is one of them. When you get to the point where you have a bigger audience than everyone else, they want you on their show, they're going to distribute it for you. And to me, this is like a prospect dinner that I did not have to go to. And really, prospect dinners are hard for me because like I feel guilty about not remembering people's names. And it's just like a lot. It's just like a very draining experience most of the time. I'm sober, I don't drink, and like it's just it's an exhausting experience. Whereas like this is great. It's like talking to one person about what I'm doing with my life is like super easy for me. So, uh, you know, if 100 people listen to this podcast, oh my God, that is a smashing success. If I'm on a show and 10 people listen to it and make it like half an hour, 45 minutes in, like they're checking out rbdb.com if they hadn't already heard of it. Right. So, and this is kind of my view of why this works so well. It's like, the way people were getting software companies off the ground, like we launched ours in 2019, and like since predictable revenue, is the whole just finding people on LinkedIn and through cold email and just hitting them up and like stating the value proposition was a hack. It shouldn't have been that easy, but that was actually a demand creation mechanism. I believe that those days are gone. They're over. If that still works for some people, I think it's on its way out, and you should plan for a future where that's impossible. And to me, this is demand creation. It's cross-pollinating audiences with people who have audiences who are your prospects. So why is the only reason they're going to have you on their show? If you got an audience too, right? Like that's it. And like, I just think that, you know, it's I couldn't imagine if I were VC backed and I were like, walking into an investor meeting and be like, okay, I want to disrupt this space with an underpriced freemium offering. And I want to spend 4 days a week creating founder brand content. And I'm not sure when it will start working. Right. Like it's just not something that you can do with
Might have
like
to double click
back.
on that slide
Yeah.
if I'm doing my
With like
diligence.
money backing you, but like in a way that's great because no one else is doing it. But like, to me, it makes a ton of sense why it works. Right. It's like, I'm creating stuff that's so it's just so interesting for people who would buy what I'm selling. And then I've aggregated an audience to go tell that story 10 times a week in front of other people who are also trying to build the sort of same audience, who are attracting different people. It's just very simple to me. Yeah, but you can't measure it, which is like another thing I write about. It's like nothing that I spend my time on, I can like delineate signups from. It's like, oh, signups dipped by 100 this week. Do you have any idea why? I'm like, nope, did the same thing I did last week.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's super interesting. The swap of value that can be created when you have media assets and you can swap that for other things. It's not just exposure. Like I think of, let's say you were, wanting to get more into the Salesforce ecosystem. Well, Salesforce has 1 billion partners. They don't care about your little SaaS company. But if you build an audience, because they know how valuable, Salesforce's brand is, so they can't just like leverage that out to everyone. But if you have a startup that has a huge audience, is Salesforce's marketing team going to pay attention and be like, oh, actually, we should do some co-marketing with Adam? Um, it's almost like, who cares about the software? Let's like leverage that audience. And then all of a sudden you're in this ecosystem with a brand that is light years ahead of yours, but you have an audience and a point of view that they're willing to swap that value for.
Yeah, I haven't even explored that yet, but it's now in my subconscious as a possibility. Thank you
It
for
is.
that.
It for sure is. Definitely like Shopify ecosystem. I used to think of that like, at Outreach when we were smaller, of like, okay, we want these aspirational partners. But why do they want us? Like they don't care about us. Like everyone wants to partner with the people that are ahead of them, but they don't want to partner with you. They want to partner with the people ahead of them. So there's ways you can even the playing field, and I think media is an incredible way to leverage that. But a quick pause to hear from our partner Vanta. We've all been there. Your deal is almost closed, and all that's left is the security review. But when it comes to those lengthy security questionnaires, the endless back and forth between you, your security team, and the customer can often cause deals to stall out, leaving your deal at risk and dollars on the table. With Vanta questionnaire automation, go-to-market teams can complete security reviews up to 5 times faster, helping you close deals in less time than ever. Over 8,000 global companies like ZoomInfo, Smart Recruiters, and Noibu use Vanta to streamline security questionnaires and close deals faster. Experience questionnaire automation with a self-guided product tour. No signups required at vanta.com/GTM now. That's VANTA.com/GTMNOW. Man, so LinkedIn is huge. We like to speak through kind of stories, and I would love to hear sort of beyond the one we talked about. What is one of the most impactful stories that you've gone through building these last 2 startups? Was there a moment that was like, oh shit, like we got this now?
There were a lot of, "Oh shit, this is a disaster."
We like
And then
those
there
too.
were
We like those too.
Yeah. By the way, like, I think these stories are, like, so amazing and, like, they just don't get documented and they don't get shared. So, like, um, I created a docuseries last year and it's super high quality. It's called Billion Dollar Challenge. It's on my
Sweet.
YouTube channel, Retention Adam. So, like, check that out. And
We'll put it in
I'm
the show
making
notes.
Yeah, I'm making so like the problem with those on LinkedIn is LinkedIn's not a sequential platform. So like you'd get served episode 13 without having the background on the prior 12. So now we're making standalone episodes of this and like sort of mix it. So it's about kind of our B2B right now. It was about retention.com last year. And then we're also telling these like really crazy stories of just the journey. So like one, we had my first company sold for $10 million. We've been working on the deal for 6 months. And I am not kidding you. This sounds so weird even saying this. 2 weeks before we were giving the business to them and receiving the wire, uh, one of our engineers deleted the entire code base and we didn't have a backup.
Shut up.
So like for 24 hours, I was like, I thought that we were going to have to like go to our banker and be like, there's no company. And
Wild.
yeah, it's weird. It's this Amazon thing where like it was like if you hit stop, then it was bad. If you hit restart, it was good, and they were right next to each other. And you like turned 2 of the 4 nodes off on stop, and it was just gone. And then penny wise, pound foolish. My CTO was rewriting the backup as it was deleting, so there wasn't a complete backup. And the backup file company basically was like, we've never seen this before. No one's been this stupid. Like, what do you mean you like deleted it in the middle? He's, so
In
they
the middle
spent,
of an acquisition.
they spent 12 hours digging through the backup file and eventually got 98% of the site back. But like for 12 hours, I was walking around Austin with my dog, just like trying to internalize this loss, which was just so awful, right? It's like, oh, it's only money, but that's not what it is. It's like the whole past 7 years of your life. So like stories like that, like I'm sort of telling a lot, right? And I think it's great. We did one, we dropped one last week that was about this experience that I had at a trade show where we'd spent like a year not doing it the right way, not doing it the customer discovery 4 steps to epiphany way, but like we thought that improving the email marketing platform that we sold and creating this V2, which was like not even feature parity, but like closer to feature parity with the other platforms in the market. And then going after this segment of the market that, we sort of thought this other vendor was leaving. We thought this was pulled a spent like, we hired 6 engineers to do it, spent a year on it. And then we show up at this trade show and we're trying to pitch people this product. And it's just, eyes glazed over, like really sophisticated stunt. We were talking to a ton of people, but like once they realized what we were talking about, it was just like, I do not care. I have that problem solved, like blah, blah, blah. So like literally rock bottom of my journey was like laying in this bed with my wife that night, having spent all this money and wasted another year of being stuck and looking over and being like, no one cares. Like no one cares about this at all. Like we're screwed. But like maybe like a month or two earlier, I had heard that it was possible to resolve an anonymous website visitor to a deliverable email address. I'd heard this. I had no idea how to do it. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to make something of this second day. So eyes glaze over, second day. And I'd be like, by the way, what if I could give you email addresses of people who were on your site but didn't fill out a form? Would you care about that? And then it was like, boom, both antenna up. Questions like, where do I buy that? Right? Like, how do I, and by the way, I had no idea even, it's not even that we'd started building it. Like I had no idea how to even do it technically. I just heard that it's possible. So the signal was so strong that it started this like rabbit hole digging that like led us to these few people that sort of knew how that weird part of the internet worked. We figured out how to white label somebody, then we figured out how to like make it our own. And that was now what retention.com is. And like that indication like was kind of how it always went. Like we launched the product, it was called Get Emails. The first month we spent $5,000 on ads and got 10K MRR just doing Facebook ads. It was crazy. Super high churn customers. I don't know if you could run Facebook ads and make a SaaS work, but like it was this weird dynamic of like there was like a high ticket PLG that we had. So like we get 100 bad customers and some whale would come in and pay $5,000 and pay the ads back. But it was just the turning point. It was like rock bottom and then like so much optimism because of this one sentence I was saying, which I'd never felt before. Like I'd never had anything. I think my biggest takeaway of this story is like, I did not even have it to sell. Right. Like it was like the whole journey started with just this searingly clear one-liner and then just watching people's faces react to it, and kind of similar story with the B2B thing. It's like when we started talking to people about person level website visitor identity in the very beginning, they're like, I already have that, but they were talking about Clearbit or whatever, the company level. And then we're like, no, it's different in this way. Like, oh, is that for sale? like, where can I, yes, I want to know that information. Where can I get it?
That was my first reaction when
Yeah.
I heard about it. That was genuine. I was like, "What?" And then it was like, "Is this legal? Like, can we
No,
do this
that
now?"
is, that is the first question everybody's had.
Yeah.
And the answer is yes, but only in the US,
Right.
sadly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
we'll see how long. I think we got another decade. Some people think
Yeah.
it's way less than that. I love betting against massive regulatory change like that.
Mhm.
It's sort of like we may not be able to sell this business for a lot, but like a lot of cash can be made in
Yeah.
the meantime,
Yeah. And I think regulation follows like consumer behavior too. Like I think everyone got freaked out about like these overly customized, ads that get served to you on like Instagram and like our phones, listening to us and all this stuff. But then people also were like, but these are pretty good. I actually do
Yeah.
want this matcha tea that I'm getting served up. And like,
Yeah.
this is kind of great. So I'm going to stop complaining. So if we do
Yeah.
get to this point where we're able to, everyone wants to problem solve. And if we're able to leverage this to solve people's problems quicker and get to them where they want to go, like, are we going to block that? So it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, my concern is that, like, the regulators operate so slowly that, like, their interpretation of reality and just the way that politics works is like what they were being told 5 years ago. And then it got put in their queue 5 years ago as, "We need to end all web retargeting and cross-site tracking, period." I've heard that that's what they're trying to do. It's like there's this big antitrust thing they're working through the next few years, and then that's what they're gonna try to do. And I'm just, like, so curious whether that is even remotely on people's minds now, right? Like, I get shit. There's this guy, Clark Barron, who loves to just beat me up on LinkedIn about, like, how I don't care about privacy or whatever, and he loves to say that I don't think other people care about privacy, which is not what I say. I'm like, I don't think that someone who is 20 years old now would listen to you talking to me about the problem that you have with my product and my stance on privacy and even understand what you're worried about, right? And he's like, "Well, everybody, there's regulation going through." I'm like, he's like, how do you explain that? Gartner says people care. I'm like, these people are like 65 years old, right? Like, I hate to say this, but like girls in 6th grade are sending nudes to like 10 different guys at once. Like, if you think that person cares about privacy, you are wrong, right? Like, they don't. They're sending nude photos of themselves as 14-year-olds to be shared to the world, right? Like, it is just a different, and that's a horrible thing to say again, but like that's what's happening right now, right? It's like the issues that people are concerned with right now are just not going to be issues in 20 years, right? There may be laws that are in place, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. I think the only thing people uh, value more than privacy is efficiency and speed. And we've been making that trade since the advent of the internet.
Yes.
If it's faster, more efficient, my problems get solved, whether it's Uber Eats serving me up something or jumping in an Uber to get me somewhere faster. I will make the privacy trade all day long for speed. And we'll continue to make that trade, and I'm sure we'll have new privacy tech that will allow us to live in both worlds. As
Totally.
it,
If you
as
want to stop it, you'll be able to stop it.
yeah, exactly.
That's what the legislation should be. And that's
And people will
kind
think
of
they
the
want to
way.
stop it, and then they'll have an experience on the internet
Yeah,
and be like, "This is so fucking annoying. I got to
I
log
know.
in here. I
I
got to
know.
log in there. It's not
Yeah.
talking to each other,"
Dude,
and
yeah,
they'll
it's like
retract it.
the pain of the password thing now. Could you
Yeah,
imagine if like that was the pain of trying to like navigate web experience? You had to like figure out how to undo this stuff that you did. Yeah, I just, speed for efficiency. And it's like, look, they so another interesting story is when I started Get Emails, there was 100% conviction that third-party cookies were going to go away in 18 months, which was how the entire product worked. But I was so down and out that I was like, whatever, we'll make a couple million bucks and then I'll just use that to maybe build something else. That was almost 5 years ago. Every year they're going to start phasing out in 12 months. I heard that every single year. Literally like you'd read the blog post and your stomach would hit the floor, right? And then somewhere in the middle, we figured out how to do it not entirely depending on third-party cookies. If they went away, they would have adversely affected the accuracy a little bit, but like it still would have worked. Um, and then lo and behold, 2 months ago, nope, no third-party cookies being removed by Chrome. Like, why? I think it's back. It's like this is how the economic exchange of the internet works, right? And like, it's tough to pull out third-party cookies because like that's how people show ads outside of Facebook, right? Like that is how cross website tracking works. And like, I think if you're trying to get rid of web retargeting in general because of some people not liking shoes following them around 5 years ago when retargeting first started happening, like that is a fundamental underpinning of the economic engine of the internet. and it's just going to destroy everything. Like, that's my personal opinion. Oh, and by the way, like, it's a significant part of trillion-dollar companies' businesses. So good luck getting rid of it, right? Like, they got pretty good lawyers, you know?
Yeah.
Um,
I feel like, yeah, I think that's just the swap of value that's been happening since the advent of the internet. You give us your data and we will help you solve your problems faster. And when you give data, there is some privacy risk, but that trade is not going anywhere. All right, I want to go quickly to a founder question because this one's ridiculously relevant, and I asked the question beforehand if you enjoy it for this specific question. Question is: my team wants me to post on LinkedIn, but I start and then get super busy, and it always falls to the wayside because, frankly, I just don't enjoy it. How can I build up the habit, and is it worth it? I think I know that the part two of that one. It definitely has been worth it in your experience, but how can you build up the habit and make it a priority when you're running a company? You got a billion things to do.
yeah, I think this is just, man, my answer would be the same as, like, I hate going to the gym. Like, how do I make myself do it, right? Like, I, hate, the fact that I'm, like, just got the verdict back that, like, I'm diabetes, like, prone or whatever, and I gotta cut my sugar intake, right? Like, you just have to build the habit, and with every habit that I've ever built, uh, it has gotten easier with time. I had a ghostwriter for 9 months. That's a great way, I think, to start. Just do it for, like, 90 days and watch how they write and see if you can feel some of the benefits of coming alive on the platform accruing to you in terms of inbound for stuff unrelated to direct deals, which probably won't happen. But, like, you'll start getting hit up by investors. Like, people will start saying, like, oh, like, cool journey you're on or whatever. I'd like to join your team, stuff like that. So yeah, you can, with pretty lightweight, commitment, get someone to write for you. And you can also see how they write, which, like, there's kind of a way to write on LinkedIn. Um, and then, when I switched to Alec, my current guy, he was, like, way more expensive, but he doesn't write for you. And I was dumbfounded by that. I was like, well, what am I paying you for? And it's like, uh, you know, you're paying to be the best in the game, but, like, you're the one writing, which is, like, uh, ultimately, I think it's a much more valuable skill, but look, you would have to buy into this. Okay, if you're like me and you're selling to go to market people and you're like you were selling to revenue leaders, like, just make yourself, right? If you're selling to farmers, you really have to buy into this idea that there is something beyond your current company and, like, much more value to finding your voice through thought leadership in your future beyond what you're currently doing that's worth committing to, you know? It makes sense to give some attention to creating this inbound trust building machine or automated trust building machine for yourself and your company. It's hard to explain to somebody what those benefits are until you sort of feel them, you know? Fortunately for me, it was enough to keep me interested and, like, kind of not kind of, completely obsessed. And then now I'm getting so much back from it. I'd be crazy to not try to, like, keep doing as much of it as I can possibly do, right? So, um, but yeah, you are right. It sucks. It's a muscle you have to develop. Everyone hates it, right? Like, especially if you have other stuff to do, like in the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an important call out. I think there's this wrong perception that everyone who's creating content on LinkedIn is just like this extrovert. They love the attention and they love to, like, this is like what they love to do, and it's just not true. There's so many times I'll have to, like, force myself, or my VP of marketing will be like, hey, you haven't, like, posted anything, like, you got, like, let's do something. And it is a muscle. um it's great books. The Power of Habit is a great book. If People haven't read that, Atomic Habits, just basically the fundamentals of building a habit. Also happy you brought up ghostwriting, because that's getting more and more common. For me, I feel like I can always tell when someone makes the
Yeah.
transition to a ghostwriter. Quick, quick thoughts on that. I just want to double click. Like, so it sounds like, yes, it's a great way to learn a new muscle, keep yourself accountable, but ultimately it's going to be the most effective coming directly from you. Is that kind of your take?
I don't think there's any way that a ghostwriter could write as profoundly as you. I'm saying if your problem, which by the way I had, is like, I'm just not willing to spend time doing this without understanding the game at all, right? Like Dave Gerhardt in his book Founder Brand is like, put time in your calendar and just start tweeting. I was like, I know what I'm good at. And like what I'm good at today, product and marketing, I am so much better than when I started as an entrepreneur 12 years ago. It is incomparable. I'm playing in the pros now, and I was playing T-ball then, and it wasn't obvious to me at that time. It is very obvious to me now. I'm not going to just start tweeting against LeBron James. Somebody knows that game, and it's not me, right? So it's like, that was my
Yeah.
biggest problem. It's like, I'm not, as a complete novice, going to just start firing. So like, that's what a ghostwriter helped me with. It's like, explain to me why stuff works, right? Like, what are possible things that might work for me, right? Like, but it will never be dialed. There's just no question about it. It's just, you know, can you get, the reason I think it's a decent idea is like, can you get a presence going that shows you a light in the distance that inspires you enough to where you're thinking, okay, if I really went at this, like there could be some pretty massive, payoff out there in the future. Because that's kind of where you need to get to, right? Like the starting is really, it's hard. It's so, dude, it's brutal. It's like, if you've never posted before, you post one time, you get like
Nobody
4
gives a shit.
engagements, and I'm getting
Yeah.
1,600, right? And you're like, what is
Yeah.
that guy doing that I'm not doing? It's like,
Yeah.
well, I've done a lot, right? Like I have a massive commitment to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, you have to keep in mind, right? Like everyone at some point, everyone had 0 subscribers, 0 followers, 0 revenue, 0 everything. We were all 0. Another quote about this, which I love, is the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I like it. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think there is a lot of people are like, oh, I missed that wave. It's like too
Right.
late now. And it's like, no,
It's only
this
just
is
beginning. It will
just
get
beginning.
harder, but it is only just beginning. Like
Yeah.
that is for sure. When you can count the number of people who have had founder-led SaaS on one hand, this is only just beginning.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to think of it in the early days, and I've said this a few times, but I would look at it like I was building these little beacons that I could just litter all over the place. Every piece of content was this little beacon. And these beacons, if I was saying something that was true to me and how I actually felt, then over time, interesting problems and interesting people would start, coming around that beacon. And there's stuff that I've written 5 years ago that still people will like ping me on, and like no one cared back then, but now, people find it, resonate with it. So
It's amazing.
yeah,
It's one of the crazy powers of the internet that only
Yeah.
people who publish content understand, and
Mhm.
people who do not look at it and they're like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Like that's just what it is, right? Like
Yeah.
we are not, and that's like one of the things. It's like, if I'm looking at myself 12 years ago versus now, I would look at me now and I'd be like, that guy's an egomaniac. He's basically doing this to get famous. Like
Mhm.
he's an idiot. Like this is not the fastest way to grow a company, like whatever. Right. Let me tell you what I would not be doing if it were not like super directly affecting it. So like, I just view, being a startup founder is like, you find the maximum point of leverage and you go as hard as possible at it until you like are sort of maxed out, and then you find the next maximum point of leverage. For me, this is 100 times more leverage than anything else I got going on in either of my companies. 100 times. No question about it. Um I think the argument is about this, will you have this perfect alignment? Like, we'll see what happens when we start going into other spaces, right? Like, no doubt it won't be as effective, but like, I don't know. I think some of the skill carries over, and it's like some of the same, principles that need to be applied to, like, let's say we target agencies instead of SaaS, right? Like, I don't know that it's going to be very hard for me to like create good content for them. I think I'll be able to do it, but only because I can do it for SaaS, right? Like,
Yeah. All the same fundamentals apply across everything. Awesome, man. Well, this has been a really, really awesome discussion. I appreciate you hanging out, and you've certainly inspired me to go get my ass on LinkedIn. I don't think I've done a post in a little
well,
while.
I'm glad.
Yeah. But I always ask these final two questions as we wrap up. They are intentionally vague, so you can take them anywhere you want. You can reiterate something we already talked about. Um, First question is, what is one widely held belief that most founders or revenue leaders believe to be true that you think is bullshit or no longer serving us?
So I think there's a belief that venture capital, if you're under 10 million ARR, will accelerate your growth. I think that is not true. I think that what accelerates your growth is making your customers happier. I really believe that. I think that venture capital actually slows you down because you like go hire a bunch of people, management layers. Most of the time you don't know what you're doing. And it's actually friction. Whereas you think and it's sold to you that it will help you speed up. I think it can help you speed up later. I don't think it helps before a lot of ARR, like 10 million.
Yeah. Capital's certainly not the answer in and of itself. If you don't have a very clear path with what you're going to do with that capital and how you're going to leverage it for growth, for sure,
Yeah.
it's just noise and
But
complexity.
sometimes even when you do,
Mm-hmm.
it slows you down.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you think you know what you should do with it, and then you start doing it, and man, it's like you're looking back and you're like, man, when we were 7 people and not 22, like we were moving so fast, we were iterating so fast, we were just doing everything so much better and so much faster than now, right? So, but yeah, that's a very complex answer also. It's like every situation is so different, right?
Yeah. So we could probably wrestle with that one for a full hour. I certainly have seen both sides. What I will say and 100% agree on is capital is never the answer, right? Like if you are hitting a wall and you think that VC money is going to magically remove that wall, that is not the
That is
case.
not the use of VC. Yeah.
No,
But I
no.
think people try to use it for that, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's not a bomb for the wall. The answer is almost always creativity and action, and then you can accelerate some of the things that are working. It's kind of what you said, right? Like when you find those pockets of 10 to 100x leverage and there's a lot of meat on that bone still, can you use capital to increase the advantage that you already have
yep,
in front of you?
yep.
Um, I like it. Final question. Everyone's looking for silver bullets now more than ever. We can hear from your journey that you've experimented, pretty much tried it all, which I love. But what is one go-to-market tactic or strategy? We'll say apart from LinkedIn, because we hit on that quite a bit. That is actively working right now, either for retention or our B2B.
So we have a UGC motion that's working incredibly well. It's lead gen agencies. They post on LinkedIn to grow their businesses, and yeah, I know. They post on LinkedIn to grow their businesses, and we've harnessed that. We've given them good content to grow with. So yeah, that's the one.
I love it. UGC, huge greenfield for B2B companies. Well, Adam, you're the man. Thanks for taking the time. Appreciate you. We'll put that video series in the show notes. Go follow along. Follow this man on LinkedIn. He's doing really cool stuff. And listeners, I say it every week, but listening's one thing, executing something totally different. Hopefully we gave you some ideas and some inspiration to go apply to your own business. And we'll see you next week.